Well, welcome back to the Anti-War Room. I'm Tom Andrews from One Without War, and with me is John Isaacs, Counsel for Livable World. Welcome back from summer vacation, John.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be back.
Yeah, last time I saw you, we were in a much different location in the great state of Maine, but we're now back, and so is the Congress. And of course, what we've been talking about up to this point is Congress waiting for very important reports on which to base its next decisions about what to do in Iraq. Two of those reports came through this week, the GAO, the General Accounting Office report, and then we heard a report from an independent commission led by retired Marine General James Jones. Both of those reports, John, from my reading of them, were absolutely devastating to the administration. We learned from the General Accounting Office, for example, that the government of the Maliki government is dysfunctional. We know that any solution to this crisis is going to be a political one. It can't be a military one. And political progress is actually going in reverse. Only at 15, as it turns out, of the 37 cabinet members have actually left. And Mr. Maliki has been extremely stubborn, unwilling to compromise, and that was the fallout of that. And then we learned that in terms of the Iraqi military's ability to stand up, they've gone from 10 units able to function independently in March down to 6 units able to function independently now. And then the independent commission from General Jones, again, a very disquieting picture, saying that the police forces are dysfunctional. They're riven by sectarian divisions. In fact, there are significant militia infiltration of both the army and the police force. Very, very devastating picture. How do you take that, and what, if any, difference might this report make in terms of what Congress might do?
Unfortunately, Tom, the view that you have is a view which is shared by a lot of people, but on the other hand, supports the war, see the same reports, hear the same testimony, and are getting a different message. I mean, just yesterday with the Senate Committee, Armed Services Committee hearing where they heard from General Jones, those who opposed the war, as you say, saw reinforcement of their position, that things are going poorly, it's time to begin a withdrawal, the political situation is not improving. But those who supported the war, or support the war, such as Senator Joseph Lieberman of Connecticut or Senator Inhofe of Oklahoma, saw reinforcement of their view that things are going better, the security situation is improved, and in fact it shows the surge is working. So as at least 2 senators said yesterday, what you see depends on where you stand, and I'm afraid thus far all we've had with these 2 reports, plus the National Intelligence estimate of a couple weeks ago, only has reinforced the positions of those going into this period of time.
So, and you're shocked at this, absolutely shocked that this could be. But John, how is it? Here's General Jones, a very 4-star retired Marine general. He says that the conditions on the ground, from his independent perspective, but obviously very, very experienced eye, says that conditions are such that we can and should begin a significant drawdown of troops. How can you take that report and conclude anything other than the fact that we need to begin an immediate drawdown as soon as possible?
Because General Jones also said a precipitous withdrawal would be devastating to U.S. interests. So he was saying things, again, that could be read by one side and by the other side as supportive of their own positions. And that's true with all these reports. They're mixed views. I think the larger picture, and I think what we should be focusing on, is the fact that whatever small improvements there may have been in some small areas, the larger picture is the U.S. effort in Iraq is not successful. That to quote-unquote win this insurgency, if we can do it at all, it's going to take a decade or more, and the United States simply has no business being in there. We should get out. In other words, whether the reports confirm or oppose various positions we hold, nonetheless, the insurgency is not a war we're winning. The insurgency is one that the United States should exit from as soon as possible.
Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky of Illinois came back from Iraq, having met with General Petraeus, who's going to report obviously next week, and she said that General Petraeus told her that we're looking at a 9 to 10 year commitment of troops, the way he sees it. Let's talk a little bit about Congress and what we are likely to see, or what we can see. The developments politically, the talk, of course, in Washington here and in Capitol Hill, is that Senator Harry Reid, leader of the Senate, has indicated that he would like to find some compromise with Republicans. We've heard that there are a group of so-called centrist Democrats and Republicans over in the House that are trying to find some compromise. One of the measures that is pointed to is Neil Abercrombie, Congressman Abercrombie, and John Tanner's proposal that was proposed before the summer break but wasn't voted on, which is to require in 60 days a report from the Pentagon on how they would actually draw down troops. Number one, do you think that that's where we're heading, given the fact that you need to have at least 60 votes in the Senate and you need to have 67 votes to overcome a veto? Is that where we're heading, a compromise language between House and Senate moderates, or as we heard from Senator Chris Dodd just the other day, some moderates that have been voting with the majority, Senator Dodd included, drawing a line and saying, look, I will vote for no bill that does not include a firm deadline. John, where are we heading?
First of all, I want to make it clear that, as you said, there's some more testimony coming next week from General Petraeus and Ambassador Crocker. Then members of Congress will consider legislation, probably sometime between mid-September and October. Both the House and Senate will consider new legislation to get us out of Iraq. It's not clear how things are going to turn out. As you say, Senator Harry Reid, the Democratic leader, is talking about a compromise. The clear position that we'd like to see get out of Iraq requires, as you point out, 60 or 60 votes in the Senate and a two-thirds majority ultimately in the House. We don't have the votes. We didn't have the votes in June. We don't have the votes now. So some people will be advocating compromise. On the other hand, as you say, there's some Democrats, including Lynn Woolsey and Barbara Lee in the House and Dodd in the Senate, who say no compromise is possible. So it's not clear whether there can be a majority, whether there'll be a compromise with the moderates, or whether there'll be so many divisions between the left and right and center there'll be no agreement. And essentially, if that happens, the president has a free hand on the war, probably through the end of this term.
Well, of course, the president has gotten everything that he's wanted up to this point. Of course, it's been the Democrats' majority in the Congress, House and Senate have been unable to overcome that advantage. But you know, you have on the one hand substantively the argument from those who are against this war, saying, look, as a matter of principle and practicality, given the devastation of these reports, we cannot in good conscience do anything other than vote against anything short of a firm deadline to get out. And of course, we've had a number of members of the House laying down that principle. Politically, the political argument is, why should we compromise as Democrats and give those Republicans who are really under the gun in Maine, in Minnesota, and in New Hampshire, why should we give them an out that will have the effect of doing nothing? You know, why should we compromise, allow them to vote for, let's say, let's get out in 60, let's get a report from the Pentagon, from the President, when a report does nothing to get our troops out? What about those two arguments, John? Will any one of them hold sway among those who are going to have to make this decision on the Democratic side?
Again, there are conflicting positions, as you point out. Each of the camps, the hardliners say no money whatsoever for the war. Those who say we have to find a compromise, both have substantial blocks of support. It's not clear where there's a majority. I think we're going to see further developments over the next week or two with these new reports next week, and then I don't want to predict the outcome. But ultimately, members of Congress will have to decide, do they want a pure position, time to get out of Iraq, that's the only real position, if not, we'll fight it out in the 2008 election, or we can develop a majority of 60-vote majority in the Senate and a like majority in the House to stop the war, and something that at least forces change in policy. And it's not clear which of those two positions will win out.
And I guess the key there is force change in policy. What exactly would that mean? Would it give us progress towards the goal of getting out, or could it stand in the way by giving the mirage of progress when in fact nothing substantive change? Well, we're going to be following these developments very closely here in Washington. We're going to be back here next week after the Petraeus report, which is coming on Monday. We're going to be back in the midweek to talk about that and the impact. And the bottom line is, let's continue to call and communicate with our members of Congress and tell them to take the strongest possible position as we move through these next critical weeks. John, thanks very much for joining us. Thank you for being with us. We'll be back next week on the Anti-War Room.